Brad here.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Hey, Brad, how's it going? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. This is fun. It's great. You know, we talk a lot about networking at schools, and I think this is the first time we've done a Sketchnote on air. So we've got, I don't know, 40, 50 people in the room, and how many online?
Well, we had 160 folks sign up, so they'll all get our archive, and then we have people trickling in now, all from, we've got Utah, Australia, we have Liz joining us with a snowy evening, Colorado, Hong Kong, so we've got a global audience here checking you out, Brad, and learning about Victoria and the summit, so maybe everyone from Victoria can all yell hi to our global audience.
Hey.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for letting us crash your face-to-face session. And you guys are always welcome to come see these. We try to do one a month. So if you love watching Brad and other sessions, just stay tuned on our Google Plus page and at EdTechTeam on Twitter. And we try to host one of these a month. So thanks, Brad. I don't want to take up any more of your time. We'll be here on the back channel. If anyone wants to join us there in the back channel as well, we're at todaysmeet.com/edtechteam. And if you're there face-to-face, you can still sign in and get a door prize if you want. It's bit.ly/edtechteam sign in. So with that, Brad, thanks again for letting us join, and can't wait to learn from you about sketchnoting. Let's do it.
All right, thanks. Okay, so we'll get right down to it. This is going to be a little workshop on the mechanics of sketchnoting. And part of the, I mean, I think one of the great things about sketchnoting, I mentioned in the keynote this morning, is there's good evidence to show that when we want to consume information or want to understand something, if we do that by hand rather than typing notes on a laptop, for whatever reason, it seems to create a greater understanding and a richer understanding in us. And especially if we're using text and pictures at the same time. There's something called dual coding theory, and it looks like when the brain is using two modes of communication simultaneously, it creates a different kind of understanding. So if I write the word justice and draw a picture of, you know, the scales of justice or something, that's somehow creating a richer meaning. We'll come back to these ones here. But I want to look at this. This is an actual event between two great minds of the 20th century. A guy named Charles Wiener, who was he pioneered the oral history of science. He said, listen, we have all these papers that these great minds are producing, but we never stop and talk to them and ask them about their process and all the rest of it. So Charles Wiener went to talk to Richard Feynman, you know, recognized as one of the 10 greatest physicists of all time. And it happened to be that Feynman had a stack of papers on his desk, and Wiener comes up to him and says, oh, Richard, this is great. Thank you for recording what was in your brain, transcribing it onto paper for me to see. That helps a lot. And Richard said, no, no, you don't understand. That wasn't a transcription. That is my brain on paper. That's me thinking live, real time on paper. And Wiener says, no, no, no. Psychologically, people don't do that. You think it and then you write it down. And Feynman says, no, no, no. I don't think it first. It happens as I write down. And it looks like that's the case. We've historically been externalizing our brain for a very long time. As soon as we started drawing pictures on cave walls, that was a way to get something out of our head and show somebody else. Libraries are ways of holding more information than our own brains can handle. So there's no way I could read all the books in my own library. But nevertheless, they're there for me to rifle through when I need them. So doing sketchnoting is about seeing what's inside your head. And I think that's something different. We talk about getting kids to reflect, and I think sketchnoting makes a great reflection tool because it's not slavishly copying things down. In fact, you can't slavishly copy things down and make it happen. There's our brain on paper. This is a sketchnote I made at one of Alan November's conferences in Boston. This is David Weinberger talking on stuff. So some of this is stuff that David Weinberger said, and a lot of it is nothing that David Weinberger said. And so what I'm doing is capturing some of the things that he talked about and how they connected to my knowledge. So I have a couple of basic rules when I sketchnote. I never write down trivial information. That is information that I can look up somewhere else. I want to free my brain for the hard work of thinking about what people are saying. So non-trivial information only, and only if I don't know that non-trivial information do I write it down. Otherwise, I'm trying to map what the speaker is saying to what I already know. And the little pink line on this, in fact, this wasn't his narrative. He was talking, and I was writing all this stuff down and had all these ideas and couldn't make sense out of it. And right after he spoke, I suddenly saw my own narrative for this. So I drew a path connecting these ideas. These are just some samples of sketchnotes. This was done at EdTechTeam in London last year. This is just some doodles for some other. But here's an example of what my sketchnotes looked like back in 2012. We were talking before we went on air here about, what do you do with that internal editor, the one that says it's not very good, and my erase anything you sketch, just let it go, but date everything you do so that you can look back and I go, wow, I might not like some of my sketch notes now, but I'm doing a whole lot better than I was in 2012 when that started out. Those are pretty scrappy looking sketch notes. Here's some more, just some examples of sort of the evolution of my own sketchnoting. I'm playing around with some ideas. And now they come to something like this, more or less. That's what a series of notes. This was Nancy Duarte. Duarte's company did all Steve Jobs keynotes, for example. She was at an Apple conference. I've started writing recipes out as sketchnotes now, trying to focus more on pictures, make them a little more universal. This is my lesson, never throw at anything. You can always put eggs on top of it and call it a fancy meal. So here's where we want to start with. Draw every day. Find some way to do that. Again, before we went on air, I was saying that I roll with 2 notebooks. One of them is called The Past, and that's kind of a journal. It's just a logbook, a quick record of what I did that day. And I use it as an opportunity to draw. I just make a little, if I went out for pizza, I'll draw a picture of pizza instead of saying I went out for pizza. And it gives me that opportunity. Drawing is like any other skill. You just have to do it a lot for it to take. The only difference between somebody who has talent and somebody doesn't is they move along the learning curve faster. But everybody can learn to draw. Everybody can learn to play a musical instrument more or less well. So draw every day and never erase. Just commit. Draw it and live with it. And when you do that, you'll begin to see the mistakes or the things you don't like. And next time you draw it, it'll be a little bit better. I used to work in restaurants and learned to bake bread from a guy named Chris Brown in Vancouver. He was the one who started Ecco Il Pane, if you've ever been to any of their places. And he learned to bake bread by going to Italy and work with these bakers. And the bakers said, you just have to make bread every single day for 2 weeks. Because what we tend to do is we make bread, it doesn't turn out, and then we get put off and we stop. And then a month later we try it again, but we've forgotten what we did wrong. So you need to just draw all the time and you begin correcting the mistakes you made and you start to feel better about things. This is a travel log. A year ago, I went off to Dusseldorf to do some Pro D work. Turned out, for whatever reason, this seemed to be a journey about towers. There was the tower on the ferry, there was the tower in Vancouver, and then Vancouver Airport, and we stopped in Calgary, and they've got the Husky Tower, and Frankfurt Airport has a tower, and Dusseldorf Airport has a tower, and the city of Dusseldorf is famous for its tower. So this was an opportunity just to try drawing different things. Keep a little sketchbook going where you just experiment with things. So this is some of the drawings I'm doing more recently, so I'm feeling a little more confident. I like these figures. I can't draw them fast, but I'm beginning to stretch out a little bit here. And more just pages noodling. One good practice is to draw things that don't exist because nobody can tell you that's not what it looks like. So I was at a hotel and I was walking down the hall and I swore somebody said, I need to get a bouquet of pandas. So I thought, I'm going to draw that because nobody can argue with me what a bouquet of pandas looks like. And somebody made the express, said something, it's how much is it? It's 4 1/4. So I drew the little Canadian quarter and the number 4 in there, whatever. And that sort of spindly figure there was a figure that I saw in a magazine about graphic design. And that's a pretty faithful reproduction of the spindly little figure. I liked it because his arms are easy to bend, sort of like Gumby, and wanted to have a figure that I could show some expression with and manipulate. And having these exaggerated features worked really well for me. So it became this little guy here where I started experimenting. That's a quicker version to draw. And it's since become this guy, which takes a little bit longer to draw. And you can even turn him into Borat or something like that if you want to. So play around with things and make them your own. There is no absolute way to sketchnote. I was looking this morning. I thought this was great in this morning's keynote. Where I was asking people to sketchnote. So this is, that's pretty good. I've never met this person, and that's pretty close to what I was drawing there. But this one I thought was fantastic because they said, I don't need to draw like, the way Brad draws. I can just draw my own people. The idea is still there. We have in the You know, the bottom left, the second pair of figures moving from, the change happens when behavior changes. That's pretty clear what's going on if you're in the keynote. So, and this person had the courage to just draw, right? You know, these aren't Michelangelo's work here, but we're capturing the ideas and it works. So I'd be interested to talk to this person, say, a month from now and see if there's greater retention on things. But let's go to how do we actually do this sketchnoting stuff. One of the things that I think is really good for students when we sketchnote is normally when we take notes, it's a really passive experience. I talk and everybody, you know, furiously writes things down, or you're watching a movie and you try capturing everything. And if you're a really good student, at the end of the day, you look at your notes and you might highlight some things, or if you use the Cornell note-taking method, you've got a column on the left to ask questions, which become study questions and all the rest of it. Sketchnoting inverts that process, and you do all the thinking before you put anything down on a page. You need to listen and synthesize and do that check. Is it trivial data? Forget about it. I can look it up later, or I can call the speaker or read their book or whatever it is. You also need to think about how you're going to lay out the page, and there are basically 3 layouts for the page. Is the presenter going to do something like a storytelling thing or present information in a sequence? And we're going to use that reverse S kind of thing, you know, like a typical book, top left to bottom right. The speaker might say, I have 3 key ideas I want to develop today, and then you think, okay, I'm going to lay out my sketch notes in columns like this. Or it might be, we're just going to throw out some ideas and play with things. David Weinberger's thing, he seemed to be going all over the place, and I couldn't detect the narrative until later. So even doing this, I think, suggests to our students that they have to anticipate what kind of information, what's the structure of knowledge I'm going to play with. So even before they come to class, there isn't this passivity built into it. I'm now thinking, how am I going to structure my notes? So today we're just going to play around with a bunch of things, and you can start drawing kind of anywhere on the page. We're going to use this free thinking one. And then one other thing is to put some kind of identifier on the page here. When you take sketch notes, you can cite your own sketch notes in an essay, for example. If you were to go and listen to Prime Minister Trudeau and take some sketch notes on there, and you date this accordingly, then you can use that as reference. So I suggest that on a page of sketch notes on your notebook, you'll see in mine, in the most recent one, that it's dated. And I just, let's just go zoom in here, sorry. Here I would put the location. And now I have all the information I need when I look back on my notes. If it was a speaker, I can find out when they were talking, and whoops, and use the citation. So we have a page like this. If you're using an app like Paper, you can copy or duplicate this page. So I can make a bunch of these templates before a conference, and then I just have them. Also, if I tweet this out, it's got my @Brado thing on there, which is kind of like a, it's not really a copyright notice because I don't care if people use it. But if they have questions, they know how to reach me now. So some kind of identifier, an email or a Twitter handle, which seems to be the easiest thing. I just want to get, can I get, whoever's got my current little notebook, one with the green strap around it. All right. So what makes up, just like math and English and those things have a grammar or some basic things you need to know to construct a sentence, whether that's a sentence in English or whether it's a mathematical equation. There is kind of a grammar to sketchnoting. Just 4 basic elements is all you need. And then your drawings become more elaborate and you combine them in different ways. But we'll go through what these 4 basic elements are. The first one is just text. You need text in order to write these words down. And the whole name of the game is to draw things that you don't really have to think about. That's why we want your drawings really simple. You want to free your brain for that hard work. As I said, the reason for not capturing trivial data is that I need to think about what's going on. You know, is what Holly has said or is what David has said, do I know it? Is it non-trivial? How does it connect to previous bits of information? So I find just 4 basic fonts are all I need to really communicate a lot of information. So the first one I do, I use, and I give it this double riser here. So if I want to say think or something like that, and I choose this because it stands out on a page, but my brain doesn't have to learn anything new. This isn't a complicated font. Everybody can do uppercase letters, but the double riser just makes it distinct. And so my brain's free to think now. I can draw this automatically. The next level is just the straight up uppercase letters. Whoops. And then I use lowercase, and then a script. And you can choose whatever you want, but I've known how to do this for years, right, since I learned cursive writing in school. And you can see on, let's go back to David Weinberger's here. You can see how this text is mixed up all over the place, and there's no hierarchy on this page. Usually when we take notes, you know, we have that, this is point A, and then 1, or A1, and then A1A, and A1A1, using from Roman numerals and Arabic numerals and capital letters and lowercase, and there's this hierarchy of importance. I use the weight of the font to denote importance. So somebody could be saying something, and I'm going, okay, that's kind of interesting. Then all of a sudden something resonates with maybe a project that I'm working on, or I want to take it back to my students. And so David was talking about Reddit, and he thought that was really important. He said, you know, you need to be on Reddit. It's this great medium of the 21st century, so Reddit has to go in capital letters. And great was for emphasis and cross-conversational platform. Cross-conversation is some of the stuff we're talking about in my school, so it echoed for me. And I can scan through this now and see these big important words. And I can also draw connections in a way that I can't if I've got a hierarchical note system. I can easily, you can see some of these connecting arrows that I put in afterwards. Yeah. It was done when David was done. Within 60 seconds of his last word, I was done. So, and that's the key, because he's not talking about anything more. I don't need to write anything down. I might color it in, and we'll talk a little bit about coloring afterwards. But that one was done within a minute of when he was finished. That entire page. That's 2 pages of his talk. Within a minute of him finishing. So that was he spoke for an hour, and I have 2 pages of notes, right? But when he was done, I was done. That's, yeah, it's about half an hour of that page. There was one other page before that. Yes. Yeah, so good question. So those of you online, if you didn't hear the question, you know, do I get lost while I'm doing these doodles, basically, while somebody's speaking? The answer is sometimes yes, but this is what was happening when I would be taking notes the old-fashioned way, either typing them or doing that hierarchical note. David would say something really cool. I go, whoa, that's really cool. And my brain would just start riffing off on things. And then the speaker would say, and it sort of becomes the Charlie Brown voice, you know, the teacher would, wah, 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 wah. And then all of a sudden I'd tune in and they go, and that's probably the single most important point of the day. And I go, oops. But I was doing that anyway. I recognize that maybe not everybody does, but I get lost. That, you know, if I was going to school now, I would definitely be diagnosed as ADHD or ADD or something. And I find that sketchnoting actually improves that. And when I get to the coloring part, I'll speak more about that. But you're going to lose information. Nobody, no matter how good they are at recording, can capture everything. You can turn a video on and capture it, and you have to play that several times to transcribe it accurately. But this represents me pretty seriously engaging with David's presentation. Yep.
What tool are you using between you and the iPad?
I use a stylus. This one is made by the same company that makes this app, by 53. Doesn't matter what stylus you use, it's a personal preference. This one's fairly expensive. It's like 60 or 70 bucks, but it's programmable and has pressure sensitivity built in. But my second favorite is like a $15 bamboo stylus. For me, the most important thing is how the tip rolls across the page. So, yep. So we'll come back to some of this, why we're doing this, and how it helps us concentrate when we're doodling. But let's go back to this here. So we've got these 4 fonts, and you can do more embellished things. If I know there's a speaker I'm going to, and I know what the topic is, I'll go and research them online and see. You know, I want to do that ahead of time. So if they say something, I know I don't have to write it down because it's available online or in their book. If it's important, I can go find it. When I'm in the room with somebody, I want to get things that I can't get any other way. And if I can get it all, I sit back and mark student work or something like that, right? I'm not obliged to write down everything the speaker said. So 4 fonts gives us enough to give that different weight. So you can mix these up in the middle of a sentence. That's how you're going to show different weights of meaning to things. So this is the first thing we need, is fonts. Whoops, come on. And I'm going to color those in. And for whatever reason, when I do these bullets, I always color them in purple. And the color itself doesn't matter, but the consistency of it does. So that when I look over my sketch notes, if I see purple bullets, I'm highlighting something in some way. And it allows me to go back and scan through quickly. Sometimes it's when people say, I've got 3 important things, here's part 1, and part 2, and part 3. Other times, I'll go back and write in a sequence. But I use purple, and it allows me to quickly scan. Purple has meaning for me. The next thing that we need are boxes and containers for stuff. And I'll show you what that looks like now. Let's just move over a bit and see where we've got. We'll start here. So the most basic one, hang on, I'm just going to go back to black here. Whoops. Obviously is a box. And this can do several things. I mean, you can use it to frame a picture of some kind. You know, whatever it is, for some reason you want to mark that as separate from everything else you've got on the page. Oops. You can use it to literally show a box. Okay, and here's a box with the flaps open on it. And then you can do interesting things with that. So we'll come back to some of this stuff. But you know, maybe you draw a brain and this is thinking outside the box now, or something like that. Let's back up a bit more. I use this box. Another practice I have is anytime there's an important name, maybe it's the speaker or a really important guy like Brado or something like that, I put a box around it and color it in yellow. And again, that's a completely arbitrary thing. I'm going to do this quickly. And my thing is to put just a little drop shadow on my boxes like this. And what this does, and this is to answer your question, you know, do you get distracted? It's kind of like having a squeeze ball for me. Because you'll find when people talk, when there's a presentation, they'll raise an important point. Let's say we're talking about the Renaissance, like I was talking. You might say, you know, the birth of the Renaissance goes back to, say, Galileo. And I go, okay, the person's going to talk about Galileo, and I write the name Galileo down because maybe I've never heard it. And then they're just going to describe Galileo for a couple of minutes. And I know that's going to be trivial data, so I don't have to listen that closely. But I don't want to get completely lost. That's when I start coloring in and doing these little hash marks. It keeps me focused on the conversation. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not looking out the window. I'm not talking to somebody else. I've got half an ear on there, but it's my mental squeeze ball. And then they're going to say, okay, on to the important stuff. Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, you know, this isn't, I mean, this is really good for grabbing conceptual information. If you need to record just detail stuff. Yeah, absolutely I do. I mean, I do all my meeting notes like this. I mean, some of the stuff in these books are me sitting in a school leadership team meeting. It's the way I think. Yeah.
I just, after 12 years of regular school, then 4 years for college, and 4 years of university, and 2 years of a master's, I finally had a boss who didn't say broad enough out. You know, she said just actually data that,
Yeah.
you know, and I have great caricatures for all my teachers and all my classes, but you know, for those kids who, you know, they've got a lot of things going on, they might be actually getting it a lot better.
Yeah, and but there's a social etiquette that goes with that. Like, I'll go into meetings and I'll say, this is a really important meeting. I need to get some information out of this. So I'm going to be doodling on my iPad or on my notebook furiously. That doesn't mean I'm not listening to you. And I think that's an important skill to teach kids. You know, I say to my kids, you're not only you're welcome, you need to bring your mobile phone into my class. And I expect you to do the same thing I would if a call comes through. You look at it, it's an important call. Your mother is saying, I need to pick you up right now. We've got to take your sister to the doctor. She's fallen and broken her wrist or something. Then you do what every adult does, and you go, excuse me, I have to take this call, and you go out into the hallway. Now, I'm working with senior kids, so we can do that. But we need to teach people this etiquette. It's still a problem. If I'm typing on my laptop, nobody asks a question. I could be doing anything on this laptop. But as soon as I'm doodling on my iPad or in my notebook, people think I'm doodling, and I'm not paying attention. So it's something we have to educate the rest of them. But there are times when it's just not appropriate. I need you to look at me in the eye. But one of the ways I deal with that, when we have that kind of thing where I need lots of eye contact with my students, I give roles out to my kids, and I have official note takers or scribes. One of them is a sketchnoter, and one of them tweets every class. So no matter if I say, everybody, put your laptops away, get in a circle, and we're going to talk eyeball to eyeball. Those two people are free to continue what they're doing, so they capture it for us. And that rotates around. So you're not participating in the conversation, but you're doing a service to the community that way. So, to containers and things, these boxes and stuff. Rectangles, squares are you know, used a lot to contain information. Triangles can show direction as well as contain information. You know, up, down, left, right, whatever it is, point to things. Circles use a lot as primary shapes for other drawings, like so. You know, you can turn this into a clock, for example. Which is just a bunch of circles. Or, you know, this one's quite handy. A circle with two half circles in it. So now we've got a do not enter kind of thing going, right? And it's really handy if you think of drawing geometric figures. We're all pretty good at drawing geometric figures. We've had tons of practice with squares and circles. So if you start to think of the things you're drawing as combinations of these, it kind of frees you up and gets rid of some of the pressure your internal editor is putting on you. You can make these come to life a little bit better by adding some shading to them. We can do a circle like this and just give it a little bit of depth that way, and even put shadows on the ground beside it, like this. So that changes it from a two-dimensional object to a three-dimensional object of some kind. And how we do that shadow affects quite a bit. We can put a little bit of shadow on here, but then we can put this shadow down here. And now we have a sense of that ball being in the air above something. We can do the same thing. We'll come to drawing people in a minute, but if we draw we have a sense of that person, you know, leaping up into the air using this shadow thing. Let's take a look at, so we've got boxes and containers. The other thing are arrows, connecting ideas. Remember I said there's no hierarchy on this page. So sometimes after the fact we want to connect some ideas, or maybe I'm going to make a connection that the speaker or the video didn't make. It's my own connection between things. And I find just a couple of kinds of arrows are usually sufficient. A basic kind of big arrow like this. And you'll notice I draw the sides of the arrow first, and then I draw these little bits. This mentally gives me kind of the focal point out here. It allows me to draw a better arrow, a little more symmetrical one. But these are good for putting instructions in. big enough to draw in, and if I want, I can use color again, something green to suggest that that's the start. But a lot of the arrows on here, let's see if we've got, go back to this kind of thing, this kind of pathway. I find something like this is better. Usually what happens is your sketch notes get so complicated and so full of detail that a regular simple arrow, something that looked like this, if I wanted to connect a couple of ideas, go back to, if I wanted to connect some ideas like this, that little arrow gets lost in the mess of things. So I'll go back to our page here. If I wanted to connect the idea of start and the clock, maybe we've got things on the clock. Oops, let me go back to black. And again, this is where I'll often draw these more elaborate ones while the person is doing that fill-in speech, and it keeps me focused on things. Like that. Okay. So we have text and boxes, and we can use some color to give meaning as well, and basic shapes, and a little bit of shading to do some things. Those are all pretty easy, yeah.
Do you have any conventions around the labeling of arrows to help you reconstruct your thinking after the fact?
I basically only use this kind of arrow. That's pretty much it. These two, I mean. Something that sort of is, here's something important or refers to something else.
So you don't use it to define the relationship between ideas?
Not usually. I'll make it to show that these are connected, or one idea flows, or maybe the speaker has given me an idea and 3 more ideas come out of it, and I want to show some kind of relationship. But it's just the arrow. I don't have, that's just personal, but it's entirely up to you what we do. So we have this as the simple things. The real challenging stuff for us is when we start to draw the little doodles, whether we're drawing things like cars or airplanes or people and animals, which, you know, as we go, we kind of go, there's a hierarchy of objects, boxes, crates, cars, airplanes, animals get harder, and humans get completely intimidating. But I'm just going to show you a couple of things you can do to draw using, again, this sort of geometric idea. I'm going to start another page here just to give us some clear space to work. So they're kind of categories. Remember I said we want a vocabulary. And I sort of think in categories, things that can be used conceptually, because that's what we're trying to grab with these images, is not an authentic reproduction of the thing, but the concept of the thing. So let's talk about things that go. We have a lot of times where we're moving one thing to another place, whether that's a thought, or we want to represent, I don't know, we're doing human geography, and we want to represent human migration or trade patterns and things like that. So let's start with drawing a car. And it helps, again, if you think of how would a grade 2 kid write this? Right away, you're free because you get to go, I'm a big person, I'm going to draw like a grade 2 person, without revealing that I can only draw like a grade 2 person, right? So when you're drawing a car, start with the wheels first. That kind of gives you, you know, where's this thing going idea. And, you know, you can do the wheels any way you want, just to give it some variety. And then I like to draw things that I can draw with as few lines as possible. If I can draw it with one line, that forces me to push past the internal editor. When you see people doing that, you know, scratchy sketching kind of thing that they do with a pencil, one, you're taking too much time. You're not listening to the speaker. You're now trying to draw this in a representative way. And it just takes too much time. So try drawing a car in one line. So I usually start here, comes over, we've got the bonnet, the body of the car, and the bed of the car, some window, a door handle, and a hood ornament. And like I said, that's more than 30% of the way to the car. There isn't anybody who's going to have any doubt about what is that. And then if you think of rubber stamping that kind of thing, let's draw another car. And I'm just going to move along and maybe draw a truck. For me, a truck has got a couple extra wheels in the back that's going to carry a heavy load, but the drawing motion is the same. I'm just doing the bed of the truck bigger. Okay, and then I can draw some other ones in behind, Don't even have to draw the complete thing. Like that. Like so. And now I have the idea of traffic flow. Could be mass production, Henry Ford, whatever I want to say. Depends what I write below that. I can do things like this. And now talk about pollution, carbon footprint, all kinds of things. But I've used the one drawing many different ways. I can do that drawing and just use it straight up to say it represents a car. If we took, whoops, let's backtrack. If I make a truck, I can put things in the back of the truck. Maybe a crate. Good markers to have are watercolor markers, you know, those Crayola watercolor markers, or highlighters, because whatever's underneath shows through. It's, so we've got the circus coming to town now. Okay, so I can literally show transportation with this as well. So something very concrete like a car, I might want to show the circus is coming to town, something quite literal. Or I can you know, use this to represent carbon footprint, pollution, human impact on the planet, kind of whatever I declare it to mean. But again, we're working this dual coding thing where I've got an image associated with it. Taking a step up, things that go faster and farther, airplanes, for example. Again, think of how a kid might draw an airplane, like this, like that. And that's, again, that's enough to say airplane. We can show the passage of time with this airplane. I could do this. And now I've got a propeller-driven airplane. Or if I don't put the little propellers in, I've got a jet. So I could draw a car, a plane with propellers, a plane with jet engines, and start to show the evolution of technology or the speed of transportation or something like that. Maybe something that goes a little faster still. Oops. Okay, so again, all of these in combination would tell a different story than any one of them. And I can use that same, again, the idea of I want to learn to draw some things and get them in my hands so my hands can think independently. I can take that same rocket ship idea, turn it upside down, and I think I'm just going to move something here. This guy out of the way. He does not want to be here. Because we can do this with the drawing now. So we can use the same image, and now we can go from rockets to nuclear war, or warfare, or the battle, or whatever it is we want to do. But I'm trying to use the same couple of tools over and over again in different ways conceptually. And finally, to get us out of orbit or something like that, I'm not sure I've got my right pen here. Okay, we have the idea of a spaceship of some kind. And goofy drawings are fine. Again, this is a conceptual thing. If you're really good at drawing the Starship Enterprise, go for it. So things that go. Let's take a look at some other things. Bits of a city or town, buildings and things like that are really handy because they represent a lot of different ideas. They're quite geometric, so buildings, whoops, let's zoom in. And when you're teaching this to the students, I mean, all the kids can draw a rectangle full of dots, and we go office building, right? The little one, and we can combine those. Okay, and if you have some distinguishing buildings and places, that's close enough to say Vancouver. And give people an idea, we've got the Sears Tower downtown. And the kind of building that you used to draw when somebody said draw a picture of home. Is a terrific way to show the idea of home, house, domicile, whatever we want to do. And you could duplicate those again like we did with the car and create a village now if we wanted to. Or some kind of social critique like little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky kind of thing. In that same category of places, one of the handiest ones to learn to draw is the globe. And learn to draw from different hemispheres is handy. If the kids are studying, I don't know, South America or something, learn to draw it from that perspective. Whoops, come on. Okay, and you can use this, I mean, just to show the planet, but we could say, where is today's summit happening? And we could say right there, right? And show people on a map where we are. I'll do this when I'm, out of country doing presentations and I want to have my name at the top of things. I can say this is where I come from. We can use this in combination with some of our other drawings. So last week I did this. Let me just get back to my black here. Okay, so I was in Japan last week, and you can use the plane to show travel between places. So from Narita to YVR. And a few other handy things, bits of technology, iPhones, iPads, that kind of thing that suggests any sort of evolution of technology. This is kind of a generic phone, a rectangle. Do it in this order, so the rectangle and the little on-off switch, and then the other rectangle, and a couple of lines to show a shiny screen. And again, that can literally show a mobile phone, could be a tablet, but you can also use it to show just mobile technology in general, some of the stuff we were talking about in the keynote this morning. To draw a laptop, start with the back screen of the laptop like this, and it does the same thing. And then the keyboard, you come out like that, and those two things will take care of most of the time when you want to represent technology in some way. And you can do things like, because things don't have to be to scale, I'm just going to do this quickly. We'll come to drawing people in a minute. But if I okay, so now people using the devices or human interaction with devices, all those kinds of things. 30% of the way there. The other one I drew a bit earlier, the clock is really handy too. A couple of ways of showing time. And I can use this to show, precise time, or I can use it to show the passage of time by changing what goes on inside it. I can also show time this way. So you get the sort of time tunnel effect there. Passage of time or going back in time. And you can use that same arrow we did before to show time. If you draw an arrow like this, oops. What? There we go. There we are. And I'm just going to color this to make it stand out a little bit. Etc. So you can do a quick timeline that way, and you can put things on top to whatever it is we want to map out. So we start to combine some of these things. Okay, so let's take a look, one more page, and we'll look at the hard stuff, drawing animals and people and that sort of thing. Again, with animals, if we think of doing these in geometric chunks, we can overcome that internal editor. So let's draw a cow. Again, it only has to be reasonably close. So a cow starts, I'm going to zoom in a bit here, starts as a rectangle, something like that. And then the head is a triangle with the end cut off, like that. And the rest of this is just punctuation marks, periods and commas. So a couple of periods for the eyes, some commas for the horns, comma for a tail, and comma for the legs. And that's cow enough. We can do this if we want, and if we want to talk about dairy cows, we can put an udder on it. But if you did a bunch of those, you've got, you know, farming or whatever. You could put that in a truck, and now you've got the whole farm going. Close enough. And you can begin to embellish as you get comfortable. You can do the same thing to draw a horse, for example. Start with a rectangle. And the triangle head is same idea, but the head's just a little bit longer. And punctuation marks again, except they're longer, commas, and more of them for the tail, and you can put a bunch for the mane here. That's horse enough. Right. You can draw more exotic animals using the same thing. Draw a rectangle, and then a triangle, circle, some comma-like things. You know, rhino, maybe, warthog, whatever you want. Give it a little ear. Okay, so look at the things that you want to draw and try to break it up into these geometric things, and it'll get you started on what's going on. Let's take a look and draw some people now. If you can draw, start with the idea of stick man, stick person, stick homo sapiens. Okay, we can all draw that. And all you have to do to completely change the nature of this character is give him elbows, knees, and ankles. Okay, so we draw the head again and the body. And now we're going to give some knees and ankles and elbows. And if you have that in your head, I mean, it's no more difficult. It's just straight lines in a circle. It's already much more animated and much more expressive. But now I can manipulate those joints to get this character to start to do some things. So we can come here. Let's get just standing. And now he's quite an active pose. If I said this was a teacher, what would we put in the teacher's hands to convince everybody that's a teacher? Piece of chalk or something to write with, and then put a board behind. And all of a sudden we've got something happening with the teacher here. Let's back up. If I said this was a chef, what would the chef have to make the chef a chef? His chef's hat? Rolling pin, and he's an angry chef. He's got a rolling pin. He's a dangerous chef because he's got a knife here too, or something. But that's enough to convince people of chef. It could be cuisine, could be cooking, could be careers, all of that kind of stuff. Very easy things to draw. Those are sort of obvious professions, but we can do the same thing to show more complex relationships, for example. We can have so that could be a family going out for a walk, could be, you know, care of children, all kinds of things. But all I'm doing is bending the arms and the legs right now. And that's a pretty sophisticated, we could show the, you know, we could call this love, right? Maybe they're doing some culture development, starting with love. Okay, so start with those kinds of figures when you're drawing. It's easy to do and it gets you going on the way. Sometimes I find when I have a lot of people I need to draw really quickly, I'll use these star people. And then you can fill in the background here. Like that, and you've got a crowd really quickly. And the crowd can do, you know, can be to show, wow, we really like that idea. Or maybe this is the French Revolution. And now it's the angry mob. Right? Chasing after this poor guy in front here. You can kind of combine both of these if you feel comfortable, and sort of a combination of the star person and the stick person. And you can do some things. It's often little subtle things that tell us something about that. I'm exaggerating there, but we're looking at the back of this person now, so maybe this is the teacher working at the whiteboard or whatever it is, something like that. Or I can turn these this way and you know, put a cell phone in their hand and do something else. So I'm going to show you, I mean, once you've got those down, let's go to here. So if we've got, I'm just going to back up here for a second, and you've drawn Stickman, like this. How do we put some expression into Stickman? And again, using the same geometric kinds of things, we can show some pretty sophisticated emotion. So if you draw 9 boxes, we'll sort of continue here, and then across the top you see those the dash and the upward curve and the downward curve. That's going to be the eyebrow, and on the left-hand side, the dash and the upward curve and the downward curve are going to be the mouth. So we're going to take each one of these, and we're going to draw the same facial, or the same eyes and nose, just a little triangle nose and a pair of eyes. And up here it says, use this for the eyebrow and this for the mouth. And it kind of says, oh, kind of cool, you know, right? And then if we go over here and we do the same nose and the eyes, and this one says, let's do this with the eyebrow, and this one says this. And this guy's going, oh, really? And here, same. And it's going to tell us to do this. Right? Enough of a sigh there. So you get the idea. We can, whoops. Here we can go nose. And we're going to do this. Nice. And maybe like this. Whoa, nice. Oh, nice. A remarkable different expression with just the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. And let's finish this up. And this is going to be not nice. Don't like it. No. Pretty flat. And my favorite, because I wind up saying this a lot. Uh-oh. Big trouble. So those are the basic elements, and the rest is just combining them in some fashion and getting familiar with it. I find that what I do is I have a drawing that I really like I can draw a globe really fast, I can draw a plane really fast, but I start to embellish something afterwards. Once I get confident with those, I can add another one. So start with stick figures, and then when you've got a moment, maybe you stick an expression on one of these. This is a really good assessment tool for kids. How did you feel about this? You show them this, they can show some pretty sophisticated expression this way, or a self-assessment kind of thing. You know, when you hand in your work, do a little doodle like this. It tells me how you felt about your work or the feedback you got on it. But those are the basic elements. And like I said, the key thing is to never erase and always, always, always share your work and try to get rid of that internal editor, because that's the thing that's going to stop you. Take the risk and put it out there, because you can't get better until you do. It's like learning to speak another language. You can read all you want and say it privately in your room, but until you're actually conversing with people and kind of making a fool out of yourself for a while, it never goes anywhere. So thank you very much. And questions on it? Yeah.
Are you as efficient on your iPad as you are on your sketchbook?
I actually like writing on this better. This one, I use this for thinking live all the time, my notebook, my actual paper notebook. This is where I'm recording ideas thinking out loud to myself. You know, I commute by ferry, so I'll often develop ideas or I'll take notes here. But when I want to produce something, I'll do it here digitally so I can share it. If I'm at a conference, I'll often do it digitally here because I quickly want to tweet things out and get feedback on them. But yeah, this went really quickly. I'm working slower when I'm thinking. Yeah, sometimes I do. And that's what got me started. Was I used to draw and then take pictures, but that was an extra step. I really like this app because once it's drawn, I can share it to the world, right? That's iPad specific, yeah, this one. But there are lots of drawing apps out there. This one I like. For me, it hits the sweet spot between having a tool set that allows quite a bit of rich expression. I mean, you can do things like this without getting lost in the tool set. There's some enormously powerful graphics tools, but those are for professional designers. You know, where you've got an airbrush with 20 different tips. I don't need that. I need to do this kind of stuff and show some solid to the drawings, but not so much that I get lost. And it's called Paper by the company 53. 53, I was there. I've been asked to come out and meet their engineers a couple of times and their developers. And I said, so what does 53 mean? Why would you call your company 53? But it's the average distance in centimeters from your brain to your hands when you're sitting at a desk. And their whole mission is to get ideas out of your head onto something that feels as close and as comfortable as paper, but give us all the advantage of digital communication. So really well realized. Yep. Yeah, you can export this whole thing as a PDF file with each one of these as a page, or yeah, I will. Yep. So and then here you can share to follow. They have their own kind of social network where it's really cool actually, and we're just starting to experiment. So I can do a drawing, share it with all my students, let's say. They can download that drawing and edit it and upload it, and it just goes into a stack. So the master drawing is never messed up. So you can just see all these iterations of things. So you could do a basic sketch and ask everybody to contribute to it, and then you have this whole stack of changes that have been made to the drawing. I can show you what some of that looks like here. Or just while we're here, you can share to various social media that are already built in. You can print it. You can put it up to Adobe's Creative Cloud. When you do that, it makes a vector graphic out of it that you can manipulate further. But let me just go to what share looks like here. Come on. There we go. There we go. Let's go down to. So these are. It has a notebook metaphor. It used to be a notebook metaphor. Now they're just stacks of paper. If you can imagine these stacks on your desk. My idea is public stream. So these are all images that people have just floated up. You can get a good idea of what people can draw. Just trying to see something here. Let's look for something that maybe I've mixed. So we can see, so we can find somebody that's remixed one of my ideas. Yeah, I haven't seen anything where they've made substantial changes to it. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yep, we'll just try and find another way here. Maybe this one. I don't know if there are any changes made to this one. No, it'll tell you, but you can remix people's content. I'm just trying to have a hard time finding one that has a lot of drawings underneath it. Or let's see here. My ideas. Yeah, some of these were remixed here. Oh yeah, here's one. Let's see. Yeah, this one, for example, I gave the framework for this as just a tool for mapping out the SAMR model, and the stuff that's in the boxes is not mine. I just shared it up there, and other people were filling in the blanks. So I think there's a lot of potential. As a teacher, you can basically distribute a template, but have people collaboratively annotate it, and they can all download it, work on it, and upload it, and see what comes of it. So, yeah. Yes? Oh, sure. I can just give you a quick idea of what they do. I'm just going to go to something here. Yep, thank you. When you're in a drawing here, each of these tools does something different. So this works like a fountain pen, but the faster you go, the thicker the line gets. On that one, you don't have the. Oh, okay. You should be able to download it. Yep. Yeah, so you have this tool set, and you see there's, yeah, so you can swipe left or right, right? Okay. Yep. Thank you. Excellent. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, they just recently released it on the phone. Yeah, thank you.
So then you can draw with your finger.
Yep. I find when you draw with your finger, if you hold it like a pencil, it's actually easier. So I would do this for a while. It's not quite as fine, but it works. Yeah.
Are you doing the intro to Google Apps for Education session tomorrow?
I'm doing the intro to Google Classroom.
Google Classroom.
Yep.
I'm hoping to pick someone's brain. I use Google Classroom for everything.
Yep.
But I'm the CAS coordinator at
Oh yeah.
at school, and so they're doing the portfolio with the new.
Okay, everyone, thanks so much for coming and hanging out in the back channel today. Some really great ideas and questions. Particularly, it was great to hear about the whiteboard tables, Frank, and kind of extending this to other materials besides paper or iPad or apps, and what you do with them when you're done. And I really like the ideas that Jane mentioned about giving purpose and helping scaffold these skills for your kids before you get them out in the wild. So thanks so much to Brad. Oh, there's Brad. Hey, there we go. Can you unmute really quick, Brad? Sorry, I muted you. Awesome. So I think you heard, but our back channel was full of really great ideas and kind of just tips and tricks folks were sharing about their favorite apps to use and styluses. So they were active chatting for sure the whole time. So thanks so much. And if you guys have any other questions, we have a second, but thanks again, Brad. And I did wanted to mention that your school, Mulgrave School Center for Innovation, Brad will be there at the iOS Summit in Vancouver in January. So hopefully we can, folks can come see it if they're in the neighborhood to see it live and in the flesh. Mandy said, excellent session. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll go ahead and save this archive, and also just the chat was really great of ideas. So we'll also save the transcript, and we'll put those all up on the blog and send them out to everybody. But thanks again, Brad. I'll let you get off to the closing, but we really appreciated it and learned a lot.
Me too. Thank you.
All right. Bye, Brad. Thanks.
Bye-bye.